Yes, I know.
I'm pissing
Yes.
my pants with excitement.
Beer. What's his name? Hey there, booze buddies. Welcome to Paranormal Spirits, where we share a drink, we tell you a spooky story, and then we rip it apart because booze always shows the truth. And as always, we will be playing Emily's drinking game.
Emily's drinking game. Ooh, yeah. Ooh, yeah.
Where every time we screw up a word or phrase, we drink. So grab a drink, play along with us, and as always, drink responsibly. How would you feel about a lovely little possession story today?
I'm possessed with the idea of having a possession story. Ugh.
Possessed with excitement. This is an older story. It happened in the 1600s, 1671 to be exact.
Mm-hmm.
So it also happened in the lovely state of Massachusetts.
Boston possessions kid.
And happened in the town of Groton, Massachusetts. This is the possession of Elizabeth Knapp. She was 16 at the time, and she was a servant in the house of Samuel Willard, who was he was a prominent preacher in the Puritan Massachusetts Bay colony of Groton. So this was, back in the early days. Even though he was a Puritan preacher, I kind of dig this dude. And you'll understand why. He wasn't your typical Puritan preacher, right? Samuel Willard was a prominent reverend in the church, and he was known for his sermons about damnation and obedience to God. So in some ways, he was your typical Puritan reverend, right? So one sermon in particular, he stated that the youth, and I quote, of the town should be very careful because although God is ready to receive them, the devil is ready to endeavor them. So he was particularly warning the youth. So interesting that one of the servants in his house would later become possessed. So Elizabeth, is that her name?
Yes.
When Elizabeth began to show signs of possession, and this is why I like the good Reverend Willard. When she began to show signs of demonic possession, unlike most of the preachers and people of that time who would automatically go to demonic possession, Reverend Willard said, nay, we need to look at this. There may be a medical reason why she's having these fits. So he calls in a medical doctor. He took a scientific approach to this. So not only did he have the medical doctor come in and examine her, but he meticulously documented all of her fits from Monday, October 30th, 1671 to January 12th, 1672. So he kept a journal of everything that was happening. So this was a guy that was very scientifically minded. He called in a medical doctor on several occasions. They tried to find an explanation, a cure for the symptoms that she was having, but to no avail. They couldn't figure out what was going on. And then after all of that, he then declared it to be a case of possession, and only because she displayed certain attributes that were common to possession cases, right? So he says that at first, Elizabeth began to complain of pains throughout her body. She would grab different body parts, such as her leg, breast, and neck, and complain of a feeling of like strangulation.
In her breast?
In her breast, I guess you get a...
My boob strangle! My boob! Someone's strangling my boob. Sounds like a good time.
She would also have emotional fits, go through moments of hysteria, screaming out. She would also have hallucinations where she claimed that she would see like two people walking around her bed, or at one point she said she saw a man floating above her. She also broke out into fits, particularly at night. And often when she broke out into these fits, her body convulsed into these crazy shit, what we would know as a seizure. Right. But it took 3 to 4 men to hold her down, which again, nowadays we know that is not uncommon for a seizure, but back then they weren't aware of this. So to them, it was supernatural. And one day she did try to throw herself into the fire. And I would imagine, you've got to understand, this is a girl during Puritan times who is probably being told she's possessed. She's experiencing all these things. She's probably believing she's possessed.
Right.
So to her, she's probably like, I don't want this life. Oh, and as she was throwing these fits, she would yell out the words, money, money, sin, and misery, misery.
It sounds like an 80s song.
An 80s hair band song.
Yeah. Money, sin and misery. Yeah.
So Willard then documented that on November 2nd, 1671, Knapp confessed to meeting with the devil, which he felt was a characteristic of most possession cases, is that they, this is a lot of what, even during the witch trials, they wanted to know, did you meet with the devil? Did you sign, did you make a deal with the devil? That kind of a thing.
How do you schedule a meeting with the devil?
Excuse me, Reverend Willard, on the 2nd, I have a very important meeting with Satan.
I have it in my Palm Pilot. Thank you.
Okay. So she claimed that for 3 years, the devil met with her.
She had a standing date with the devil?
She met with him for 3 years, and that he promised her money, youth, ease from labor, and the ability to see the world.
I'm pretty sure I have dated the devil. Was also promised me money, youth, and seeing the world.
She then claimed that he presented her with a book of blood covenants, which were signed by other women as well. She'd said that the devil tried to get her to kill herself and others, but she couldn't do what he asked. So she continued with fits and apparitions of the devil and various other spirits until the night of November 28th. And on the night of November 28th, she had a fit lasting 48 hours. So to me, it sounds like she had a pretty serious case of epilepsy, really, in which she made the confession that after being assaulted by the devil at various times, she made the pact with him and allowed him into her bed. Racy, sexy devil time.
I'm into it. What's the devil's look like?
Well, Reverend Willard didn't journal that. So I know. I mean, the devil. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah, exactly. So the Reverend Willard's journal stated that she continued to have fits throughout the month of December, and she would talk in a strange, deep voice, and she would make animal sounds, which, I mean, she's letting the devil into her bed.
I would make animal sounds if the devil was in my bed.
It was during this time that Reverend Willard felt that the devil was talking through Elizabeth's body. And then, strangely enough, the entries kind of stopped and didn't begin again until January 10th, 1672, where he writes that he met with Elizabeth again, and she confessed to him that the devil had control of her body. She stated that he also took control of her speech. She had no control over herself, basically. He was basically in control of her. And then the next night, she went into a fit of hysterical crying, in which she called for Reverend Willard's presence. And it says in his journal, the fits held her till late in the night, which was more than an hour. I left her in them, and thus she continues speechless to this instance, January 15th. After this night, he ends his documentation of the possession case, stating that he will leave it to those who are more learned, aged, and judicious than he was. He concluded his entry with 4 final points, in which he gave his opinions about the validity of the possession. So in the first point, he states that Knapp's distemper in no way can be counterfeit on the grounds that it was physically impossible to fake such actions. The second point refers to whether or not her temper was natural or diabolical, in which he stated because of the lengths of her convulsion and the strength of her fits, he believed them to be diabolical. The third point said that though many were skeptical of the fact that many were skeptical of the fact that the devil spoke through her, he believed that the devil truly was, because there were times where she was speaking and her mouth was closed. And he also said that her throat would swell up like a balloon and the voices he heard were not her own. That's a little odd.
A little odd? She was a human bullfrog?
Satan. And then the fourth point is that he actually had strong doubts that she actually made a pact with the devil, because oftentimes she would tell him this, I guess, on several occasions, but the points she made were really contradictory. So one day she would say something and the next day she would say something else. As I said before, he kind of left it up to people that were more learned than himself. And even further, he went on in 1692 to give sermons in the one town of Salem, discrediting, no fucking hell. He went on to give sermons during the witch trials and discredited evidence that was convicting people of witchcraft. So basically saying, that is not true. I don't believe that this is true. I don't think these people are witches. We don't really know what happened to Elizabeth after that.
I'm curious though, do we think that she was actually possessed, or do you think she just had like a weird seizure disorder?
I think she probably just had a weird seizure disorder.
I concur. I honestly, truly just wish we lived in the age where I could blame things on the devil. Oh no, the devil made me do it. Oh, it was the devil. In the 1600s, you could literally just like shit in your pants and be like, Satan made me poop my pants.
Anyways, we don't really know what happened to poor Elizabeth. Hopefully things worked out well for her. We don't know, but hey.
Well wishes, Elizabeth, from 1677. Thoughts and prayers, thoughts and prayers.
Rest in peace, rest in peace, rest in peace. So, Reverend Willard, I raise my glass to you because you were one cool dude, even back in the 1600s.
High five, Reverend guy. That's the crappy story of Reverend Dude and Elizabeth, whatever her name is. If you like what you saw, cool. Feel free to like, subscribe, ring that bell because we are possessing you to do so. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time for more drunken adventures with two old, non-possessed, maybe possessed horse. Get the out. Get out.